Larry tried to kill me.
Yeah. I was so thoroughly disgusted.
I mean, think about it. Why does it make you special to do what you do?
Packers jumping around. They rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. Elliott can run inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line. My goodness.
Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground and still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
There's also Brian Clady and Bob Miller. Third and long 3. Going deep. Oh, and he's got Thomas. Goodbye. Touchdown.
Here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him free to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first play of overtime.
Well, hello, good evening, and good morrow to everyone that is joining us on this brand new episode, whatever, one of those words, of the 5280 podcast on the MHRT Network. Still not a whole lot going on, but we are joined today by a very special guest, Mr. Ryan Clenihan from Kentucky. He's joined us on the podcast to kind of give us some Broncos knowledge. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Well, we get to do another podcast episode, so pretty fantastic.
Awesome.
So, once again, like this is one of those dead times, right? Where it's between like the Super Bowl and literally anything, and there's nothing going on.
Literally anything?
Like if there was any big event, that would be the next point, but there's just nothing. Nothing to do. Like no news, no nothing. We've had XFL. Is that news?
Well,
Paxton Lynch sucks some more. Throw that in there.
Actually, that Washington crowd at the XFL game was pretty sweet, man. And the lemons, is still a mystery for me. But that's what happens when you take the beer snake away. You know, you don't do that. And those beers were gigantic.
I mean, technically, we're still waiting on an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. So that's still news, I guess, if you want to.
See, that's Sean Payton's
news that we don't have anything.
Well, that's
awesome.
Yeah. But I gotta say though, you're right. I think we are entering a little bit of a dead period but I will say it's a little bit of a short dead. I will say it's a little bit of a small dead period because, you have the combine coming up. I think it's near the end of February, and then less than a month now, we have free agency. So, I mean, it's at least like a part of a dead period that I think would say is maybe a week, depending on what you want to talk about. Like if we want to talk about coaching staff or whatever, and where they might go, that's not exactly like a dead period, but overall, yeah, I would say we're in a dead period right
now. He's got 96 jerseys.
That's amazing. So,
wow.
That does. So Avatar, you gotta tell us what is the crappiest player? Who is the what jersey did you buy? And it stands out because the player was such a disaster.
$5 says he's got a Tebow jersey.
I do.
I do.
Yeah, so do I.
I also have a Paxton Lynch jersey.
We go.
I do too. I have Paxton Lynch.
Admittedly, and because I am on record and probably having maybe one of the worst Paxton Lynch tweets of all time. Actually, two. I can personally say I don't have a Paxton Lynch jersey. I can admittedly say I do not have a Paxton Lynch jersey.
Well, I will say this. Now, Paxton Lynch did set a record. He is the only quarterback to have been benched by the NFL, the CFL, the USFL, and the XFL. The only one. So way to go, Paxton. Woo-hoo!
If only he could get a coach that could work his strengths. That's what we were being told all those years.
Right.
So
we call that the Drew Lock syndrome. Yeah.
So here's a question for you guys: what era was worse, like the Drew Lock era, or the Trevor Simeon, Paxton Lynch era, along with Mark Sanchez, I might add. But what era was worse? When you especially when you look at the social media era within
social
this.
media,
yeah,
Drew Lock.
Oh, that was poison. Drew Lock was like, it was almost like a political debate. It had that kind of negativity around it. Yeah,
both of them were so bad, and that kind of depresses me that we had two really bad franchise quarterbacks that we thought were going to be franchise, and they turned out to be not even. Yeah.
Me too. Avatar.
Was a 19 Jerry Rice Denver Broncos jersey.
I got one too.
I think I have one.
We don't care, Cam. Now, sorry, I'm chewing on some Skittles.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Well,
this podcast brought to you by Skittles. No, I wish. We did have a little bit of some coaching news. Zach Azzani is going to the Jets as the wide receiver coach under Nathaniel Hackett. Now,
my condolences.
Listen, me personally wasn't that big of an Azzani fan. Like there were moments where it was like take Jerry Jeudy. There are moments where it's like, yeah, he looks fantastic. But for the most part, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of drop problems. There's been a lot of not running the right route problems. Like to me, it doesn't. I wasn't a big Azzani fan. I guess I don't get the love that he's getting.
But you know what it was, Mike, was that he served under 3 different coaches. So as the coaches changed, he just you're showing your teeth are going to literally fall out on air. But the fact that he was still retained through these different regimes,
right.
But he still had an opportunity to perhaps be with the Broncos. Peyton said that he could look elsewhere. It is interesting that he did go to the Jets under Hackett, considering the disaster that was last year. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But it did stir up an interesting poll that Ben Albright had last night, where he was suggesting, what fan base would be in favor of this trade. And it was Courtland Sutton and a 2024 4th round pick for Zach Wilson and
Denzel
Mims. Yeah. It was Mims. Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be opposed to that trade. But I mean, that's one of the things that's flying around, is that there's the potential that Courtland Sutton's on the trade block.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be a trade worth giving up Courtland Sutton for?
Not that trade.
I agree with Cam. That's not a.
Yeah, not that trade. No.
Yeah. I don't.
Because I would rather have a draft pick back in return versus, so especially for a team that's in need of capital, But the Zach Azzani thing to me is like, he was definitely beloved within that room by a lot of wide receivers, so like, from Courtland Sutton to Tim Patrick to KJ to probably Jerry Jeudy. But I mean, like, I would say at the top, of course, it was Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton that really, really loved working with Zach Azzani. And I mean, living proof is Patrick, the way that he's been, going up the depth chart and everything like this. But like, at the end of the day, like, when you are paying, we talked about this when Peyton came on, but it's like when you are paying him the kind of money that you are paying him, you are giving him the full resources to make the decisions that he needs on coaching staff and whatever. And that's going to result in really tough decisions. We've already seen it with Ejiro Evero. We've already seen it, potentially with some other coaches. Now, it seems like there's a few that might stay. Marcus Dixon and Christian Parker being one of them, or both of them, not one, both of them. But, so at the end of the day, it's like, if Peyton is fine, bringing a wide receiver coach along that he feels more comfortable with, and hats off to him. And you know, because at the end of the day, it's like when you do look at the full body of work in the last 6 years, it's not been great. And so this allows you the opportunity to start fresh, start anew, you know. And so, I mean, yeah, any chance you can do to kind of just wipe the slate clean, pretty much, I would be all for.
Yeah. So, Ryan, we've had lots of episodes where we've gotten to talk about which player we want to keep, which player we think is worth getting rid of. We're hearing the rumors about Courtland Sutton being on the trade block. Do you think that Courtland Sutton is the Denver Broncos' number one wide receiver? And if not, what is a trade worth for him?
I don't think. I think Jerry Jeudy has proven he's, as of right now, he is the clear and cemented number one receiver. I like Courtland. And I think he could be a great number. Excuse me, be a great number two. But I'm okay with trading him if we can get. I'd say maybe him and let's say a 4th round pick for maybe try to get something in the maybe 3 or 4 range, along with maybe Mims. To me, I think that would be okay.
So maybe we do we trade Sutton for a draft pick, and then in free agency we pick up like Michael Thomas or something like that.
Right.
Is that comparable? Is Thomas better than Sutton? Would you rather have Sutton over Thomas?
I would rather have Thomas if Thomas can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the biggest question. Can he stay healthy?
It's been years. I mean, his since he's been relevant. Yet there is a big push on in some sides of the Twitterverse of Broncos Twitter that are really pushing the Michael Thomas narrative.
Definitely not me.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Cam? As far as Michael Thomas, are you not a fan, or what's your?
I'm definitely a fan of the Michael Thomas situation.
No.
But it's just it's definitely just because of the simple fact of like, if you move on from Courtland. And I think that because I think at the end, you know, even back when those whole rumors got started, and it was actually started last week, there's a big name player that's going to end up being on the block, and then we ended up hearing from Benjamin Albright when he was on the Zoo that it's Garrett Bowles. Well, the two logical candidates were Garrett Bowles and Courtland Sutton. You know, I mean, and I think at the end of the day, like the one that made the most complete sense between both of them was Courtland. Because I mean, Bowles, you know, I mean, if you trade Bowles, you have to be darn sure, one, that the team you're trading him to, you're going to get the right price for, and two, you know, you want to make sure that whoever you're going to get in free agency or whoever you're going to get in the draft that is replacing him, that you're guaranteed to get one or two or whoever. How many people did you need to truly replace Bowles? And so that's more uncertainty than trading Sutton, because we've seen the depth of the wide receiver room, and it's way easier to replace it with Tim Patrick or even, you know, or even a Jerry Jeudy for that matter, now that he's been able to step up. So it's way easier.
Right, because if we were to trade Bowles, I mean, that would make us be looking for a left tackle, a guard, and possibly a center.
Yeah.
So do we have enough capital and free agents to fill those voids if we were to do something like that?
Well, and maybe I'm reading between the lines or reading too far into stuff, but it is interesting that we started to hear rumors about, oh, well, the Broncos might be looking into trading one of their stars. And then right after that, it's, well, the Broncos would make sense for Orlando Brown Jr., right? Am I just reading too much into that?
Well, he's going to be making presumably over $20 million a year. We're not going to pour that kind of cash into a left tackle, at least. Yeah, I don't think we can at this point.
Well, and we mentioned it before, but it's like we're also talking about a situation where you almost would forced. Actually, I wouldn't even say you would almost, like you would be forced. Like you would be forced to pay him like $20 million, you know, a year to ensure that he actually comes to the Broncos, because we're talking a division rival here. Like,
Right.
so I mean, he would not in a million years be coming to the Denver Broncos. And for one, he's probably a franchise tag candidate. So I mean,
yeah. I mean, basically, we're looking at rebuilding our offensive line, except for Quinn Miners. Quinn Miners, I'm pretty sure, is staying.
Basically,
oh my gosh,
we've got to figure out running back, because like Javonte Williams isn't going to come back until maybe October, November, maybe. And other than that, we have Chase Edmonds.
Yeah.
And Chase Edmonds is a release candidate, because I mean, like, let's say you take Bowles and Chase, and then I think it was Darby. I think if you release those three, we go from like 12 million cap to like 36.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out the 12 million in cap though, Mike, because they bumped the cap up like $16 million. So is that not counting the new bump?
I have no idea.
Because then we'd be upside down. It just doesn't make sense.
I don't do maths. I just read stuff.
And I'm trying to remember, because certainly the Broncos would have some money rolled over, right? Like, like
I thought we were pretty close to the cap last year.
Sure.
With Wilson and that.
No, he was only 22 million on the cap. All of that money was new money.
Yeah.
So pull up Bill's comment and then sports nonsense, please. Because
which one?
The
one.
One that has the least amount of all caps. So Sutton is traded and then comes back, which is interesting that's the all caps against the Broncos and lights it up. I hope all of you that want him gone will take.
He
notice.
yelled there, by the way.
Yeah. And sports nonsense. Whiskey says, I don't think anyone wants him gone, but it's understandable if they trade him. And I think that's
where I'm at.
No, but nobody's actively like pounding the drum for Courtland Sutton to be gone. I'm a huge Courtland fan. I love that guy.
Yeah.
It just I don't like the Mims Zach Wilson trade. It feels like we're taking their leftovers and giving up a guy who
and you gotta leave all your moms at home.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, he's got
and her friends.
Yep. Hide your wife, hide your kid.
Well, the other thing too, like
he wanted Denzel to change his name to Denzel Moms.
Jesus.
Well, the other thing too, is that like a trade like that with Denzel Mims and Zach Wilson, it's like a trade like that can easily be interpreted as both teams wanted their players gone. Because think about it, like, Zach Wilson and Denzel Mims, they very well need a new change of scenery. And so if you're trading Courtland Sutton, it can very easily be construed as Courtland Sutton needs a change of scenery, which has so many different variables to begin with once you do that. Because it's like, you're talking, well, is he a cancer in the locker room? Is like all these thoughts start, rummaging through your head, because it's like, why was he in such a deal? And if we're, doing this part of the deal, it's just, I don't know. It's just a lot of variables that go through your head in a deal like that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't remember if we talked about this last week or not. I don't think we did. But Vance Joseph and Rex Ryan. Take your pick. Which one do you want?
If I had to pick, I'd pick the asteroid, but I'd go with Rex Ryan.
I guarantee you, if we ran a poll for Broncos Country on Twitter, and we literally asked them that exact question, who they want as defensive coordinator, Rex Ryan or Vance Joseph, about 99%, maybe even 100%, would say Rex Ryan, because I guarantee you, no one would want Vance Joseph. Which I think at the end of the day for me is like that's why I think I still trust Sean Payton and I trust him with my life, But it's just like I think that for just this idea that he brings on Vance Joseph, it's more about the response from Broncos Country and Broncos Twitter that it's going to be reckless. It is going to be ruthless when he hires, or if he hires, Vance Joseph. Because if he hires him, first let's clarify things to say that there's no attachment, to the previous regime, that's here. Like, it's a clean slate for Vance Joseph. But it's just like the moment he steps foot back onto that field, it will be ratcheted up emotionally for Broncos Twitter, Broncos Country by like 15. the moment he steps into it.
He would not be having the time of his life.
Avatar asked if Latavius Murray is still on the team. No, Latavius Murray is a free agent. He only signed a 1-year contract. The only actual running back that is,
I think it's Chase Edmonds. You're right.
There's 2 running backs on the roster, Javonte and Chase Edmonds. That's it.
Yeah,
but I do think Murray comes back though. I hope
so.
I think Bronco fans, Ryan, are unanimous in that, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, for an older guy, he did really well the last few weeks, I think.
Yeah.
Well, plus he's familiar with Sean Payton. Like he played with Sean Payton for a couple of seasons.
And he wants back. That's another thing.
Yeah.
The only thing that puts a pause on it for me, like I'm not disagreeing because I think that it's still very likely he comes back. But the only thing that puts a pause in it for me, we're talking about a running back room that, I mean, Sayre outlined it perfectly in the tweet yesterday, but it's just like, we're talking about a duo in Sean Payton and George Payton that are pretty aggressive when it comes to the running back position. So to that point, that would actually deter Murray from coming back because they're so aggressive. You know what I mean? So like you're talking about people like a Miles Sanders or maybe even a Josh Jacobs, if there's a sliver of a chance that you can get Jacobs, that they'll be that aggressive, to go out and get someone like that. Or even, it sounds crazy and it sounds, insane, but it's like if the Giants truly let Saquon walk,
Saquon,
then I'm sure the Broncos will be millions of suitors along that line that want Saquon, so it's just like, and two, you look at the draft. I mean, George Payton traded up for Javonte Williams. So, I mean, it's like they've shown the propensity to be aggressive. And let's talk about Latavius Murray. Like, yes, the deal itself wasn't aggressive, but they were aggressive in the pursuit to bring Murray here, So, I mean, like they've clearly shown that they are aggressive in going after that position.
Yeah. So one of the other things being trolled around on Twitter, by some interesting Denver Broncos media players. I won't say their awful names. The fan MHH. But they're talking about how it doesn't seem like Sean Payton has any sort of plan, doesn't know what he's doing. He's flying by the seat of his pants because we have no offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator.
That kind of irritated me.
I can't actually slap people on Twitter, but it's like, are you like, it doesn't make any sense to me. You go and you get Sean Payton, who is arguably a future Hall of Fame coach, who is, I would say, top 3 in the league right now as far as head coaches.
I mean, pay-wise,
who exactly are you going to be satisfied with if you can't be happy with Sean Payton? I don't get it.
Right. Well, apparently they were these media personalities were really into DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah.
So, saying, well, DeMeco Ryans was so well prepared and this and that. I'm like, well, just because you're well prepared doesn't make you a great head coach.
Right, but wouldn't they ask those kind of questions to a first-time head coach of like, well, who do you plan on having for offensive coordinator? What do you plan on having for defensive coordinator? Because you're a new coach. We have no idea how good you're going to be. Like, you're telling me that Sean Payton doesn't have a plan of what he's looking for. That's what you're going to tell me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's why with Sean Payton, I go back to saying I trust Sean Payton with my life because I
know about my life.
If he wants to run my taxes, he can run my taxes. That's how much I trust him.
If I'm jumping from the stands from 20 feet, I'm not going, Sean, catch me. I'm not doing that.
He'll catch you on a bed of juicy fruit.
And then celebrating you by handing freshly drinkable Mountain Dew.
No.
But
freshly drinkable?
Yeah, I created a word. Anyway, but I think the thing that I like about this whole process is it's starting to kind of go about the way the whole coaching search went. Like they're taking their time. They're ensuring that they are bringing on the guys that they need to. And Payton talked about that on Radio Row. If we even need to, if we even need to like wait until the scouting combine in order to find the right guys, the right mix, and he even talked about college coaches for that matter. Like if we need to interview college coaches and see if they want to take that jump, I mean, heck, he even pried away Ark Manning's, coach, what is his name, Logan Kilgore,
Sure.
not gonna, spin that in any sort of way, right? No, totally not. That. So, but anyway, I like the fact that they're patient and they're thorough and Payton's making sure that he hires, the right guys. But to sports nonsense point, I do agree that the offensive coordinator position is definitely kind of meaningless because it's, well, I should say meaningless, but with Payton running the show offensively, you do want that offensive coordinator that you trust, but where the buck stops, and that's with Payton.
Yeah.
I have a question. As
Sure.
far as running back goes, do you think that will depend on who is chosen as the offensive coordinator? Who they target?
Maybe.
I don't think so because Peyton is definitely the guy in charge, but his offenses are really dependent on strong offensive line and a good running game. So I don't think that there's going to be a huge amount of focus on signing guys on the defense because that money is going to be allocated towards the offense, including getting someone in the backfield. A couple of things that happened at the Super Bowl and in that same room as the comments on Radio Row is Peyton did say when he was asked about his hiring and the coaching staff, he said, slow to hire, quick to fire is the term he used.
Right.
Also, he was on the same set as Josh Jacobs and was suggesting that he might be somebody that the Broncos would be taking a look at. So I thought that was a nice tease as well.
Yeah.
So we did have some coaches hired. We had Mr. Westhoff brought in, who arguably is one of the greatest special teams coaches of all time. Like, Westhoff is awesome. And then, but he was hired as assistant head coach. And who did they bring in as special teams coordinator?
I want to. It's like Ben Quadica, I think is his name.
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he
was the Saints' former special teams coach, right?
And not connecting dots. I'm not going to be like Zan. This might be the first Zan. This might be the first Zan shout out I think we've ever had on the MHRT network. But not to be a Zan, but to connect the dots a little bit, both of those coaches were on Rex Ryan's staff. I'm just saying.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
But no, I think I read somewhere
you took a little loops in that connection. But
I think this Quadica guy, he jumped out of a helicopter, like a military helicopter, I think is what I heard. But it's very evident that with both of those hires and both being associated with special teams in some regard, knock on wood, the special teams should not be an issue in 2023.
Right.
It's Kotwika, by the way. Ben Kotwika.
Yeah, Cam.
No, I was just I was stumbling on the name also.
I mean, it's
What's
not
funny
is
Mike Westhoff spent the whole night before he got hired following all like the podcasters and media members like in Broncos country.
Muchos gracias, Mike.
I know. I think we all got to follow that night.
I wasn't talking to you, Mike.
They also brought in former Saints strength and conditioning coach Dan Dalrymple. Did I say that right?
Dalrymple.
Sounds like Harry Potter.
I said that right?
Yeah.
Dalrymple.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Rumpelstiltskin. I'm gonna go with that one. And go.
But
no, because they just let go of Landau.
Yes, Landau and some others. It wasn't just Landau; it was some others that they let go.
He wasn't technically let go.
Yeah,
they parted ways.
I think the thing that. Yeah, I think the thing that is great to see with the Broncos in those hires specifically is that they are very, very, very experienced coaches. Like we're talking about coaches that have definitely gotten their hands dirty in that particular area. And that strength and conditioning coach is no exception. I mean, we're talking about, one that's spent 16 years, right? I mean, that's the coach, like 16 years, all with the Saints, pretty much.
Mhm.
Ryan is doing his Aaron Rodgers impersonation.
Sorry, guys.
I was going to say, if we're going to talk about, local teams, he's showing what the process of what it goes through when you try and click on an Avalanche game or a Denver Nuggets game and you can't get it on an altitude.
Pretty much. But I did want to bring up, because now that we've hit who's here and who's gone, there's really not much else to talk about Broncos wise. So I kind of want to open it up to the Raiders and the Chiefs, right? So you look at the Raiders. Carr's gone. Who do they bring in as quarterback? And then you look at the Chiefs. Like, after winning the Super Bowl, they lost Bieniemy.
Literally.
Does that hurt Mahomes any? Does it hurt the Chiefs at all? Like, I still find it funny that the Eagles lose, and they lose their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, and their linebackers coach. And the Chiefs win and lose Bieniemy, and that might not even hurt.
I think that's the first time in NFL history that I don't remember when, but that's the first time in NFL history that I know of that a team has lost their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator in the same head coaching cycle. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One's at the Gannon's at the Cardinals, and Steichen's with the Colts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So with the Raiders, is there even a quarterback that they could get that's going to be better than Carr?
No, I don't know about better, but I mean, they might get a quarterback. I mean, we
obviously we're aiming for Brady, right?
We've touched on it before, though. I mean, Ryan, what do you think? I mean, you're our guest. What do you think that the Raiders will do?
I think they're with McDaniels. I mean, you keep hearing all these rumors about them going after Rodgers, right? And I'm like, that's going to go over really, really well. Not. I mean, you have two of the worst egos on the planet. So, but I think they either go draft, or maybe trade for a second tier quarterback, maybe like Jared Goff or something like that.
I mean, Garoppolo makes sense, right? With the whole
true. I
McDaniels
forgot about
thing.
him. Yeah.
But Jimmy Garoppolo is not better than Derek Carr. So I understand how you're like. I understand it from the point that you're going to go after Tom Brady, but they didn't let Carr go until after Brady had already announced his retirement. I don't understand where you're going at this point.
No, that's not true.
Are you sure?
I mean,
no, he was gone. He was gone during
They just let Carr go a couple days
No, they
ago.
let Escar go.
But also the writing was on the wall.
No, they let him. He was gone from the team the last 2 or 3.
Yeah, they released him on the 15th.
Right, but when did Tom Brady retire?
He retired after the season was over.
Right,
Carr
before they let Carr go. I'm not saying
that
letting
Carr go. I mean,
I'm just saying
we already knew.
Right, but I'm just saying you look at the situation, right? If Tom Brady is now out of the picture, how do you let Derek Carr go knowing that there aren't any better options at quarterback?
I don't know.
Unless magically you find an amazing rookie that you draft?
Or you
we all know that McDaniels likes to trade away franchise quarterbacks. I mean,
or in this case,
Cutler.
Skip away, yeah. But yeah. So I don't know, because I think that there's definitely options, and you definitely in the back of your mind, you definitely don't want to rule out options, but the Mac Jones thing I think is interesting. I will say though, the hire of Bill O'Brien, which would kind of trigger for me that they're more selling on this idea that they want Mac Jones to work out,
right,
in New England. So that's kind of where I would put. It would be very interesting though in Vegas, but the Jimmy Garoppolo thing is interesting given the whole dynamic and that we know about McDaniels and Belichick, and them maybe not wanting to really trade Garoppolo, even though they were forced to kind of trade Garoppolo, and then I don't know. There's just a lot of ways they can go. I think financially, it's probably in their best interest to draft someone. you know. But I can't rule out the Rodgers stuff because it's like, you know, again, like I would say probably at the end of the day, it's probably putting too much faith in the Raiders right now. But I mean, like, I would probably want who that quarterback should be to get advisement from like Devontae Adams. Like, who do you want as quarterback, you know, to be on this team? We all know that answer, but it's just like, how can we potentially make it work? And who do you want if it's even not Rodgers? Who would you want? And because like that's your most expensive asset, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so I mean, like if you want the guy to make it work, because we're talking about a franchise that's like, you know, the moment they let Carr go, which was the reason Devontae Adams came to the Raiders,
That's
the
what I was
moment
getting
they
ready to say, yeah.
the moment they let Carr go is they've literally created a major issue with that locker room. And keep in mind, there was already rumors of Renfro and Waller on the block. So like there's a major issue going on with that locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Last couple minutes.
I'm still trying to figure out if Mark Davis actually is bald or if that was fake.
No kidding.
I still think like the bowl slipped and they cut too much. It's like, I just cut it off.
Because if it's real, he looks good.
Beldar Conehead.
Yeah. Looks better than he did with the bowl cut, I'll have to admit.
True.
Oh, yeah.
So last little bit before we go, something that we haven't talked about before. Before the Super Bowl, they had the Pro Bowl. And this year it was the Pro Bowl games and flag football. What did you guys think of the new way of doing the Pro Bowl? Liked it, loved it, hated it, didn't like it. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I didn't watch much of it, but I think it's interesting compared to, at least they're giving effort, because over the last few years with the actual game, I mean, it's all just offense and touchdowns. I mean, there's no defense whatsoever. So I do think it's at least interesting, and more people are going to, tune into it.
Right.
I think this was probably like an audition period for them about how can they make the NFL product, as far as an all-star perspective, better. Because I mean, like I think the NFL has to find this way, and I think the best catch was okay. Like there's probably ways they could do it, better. But I will say that like I think it's they're probably trying to invent ways to make the product better for the Pro Bowl, in ways that, because if it is the best product sports wise, how can they get it to where it's like the slam dunk competition, right? Like how can they get it so that it's popular and it's something that, the players and everybody is just going to be like entrenched because they enjoy it so much. And so I don't know, maybe they can find ways to do that with the best catch. But like, I just thought it was okay. The flag football game it's fine because you should never do a real game, like,
right.
But like I will say I loved the fact they brought the skills competition back. I love the fact that they brought the the precision accuracy stuff again.
Mm-hmm.
And where we saw Derek Carr throw shade at the Raiders. Kudos to him. But. Yeah, so but no, I thought it was great overall. I think I understand where they're going, but I want to see more.
I know it's probably not going to happen, but what do you guys think about that rumor where you take the two worst teams at the end of the year and make them play against each other for the number one overall pick?
Like if they're tied, like the same record?
No, I mean you take the two worst teams. I think that's the rumor going around. Would be for kind of like for the Pro Bowl type thing, it would be you take like the 31 and 32, the ones that finished with the worst records, like you said, and then whoever wins gets the first overall pick. I mean, at least that's one of the rumors I was hearing around the Twitter sphere. So,
I mean, I'd be fine with it, but like,
it'll never pass.
What if like the worst team is 1-16 and the next is like 5-12? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's not gonna be a good game.
Yeah.
Not only that is the payments and such. And the what if someone gets injured in that?
Yeah.
In that last game. But I like the coming up with some different ideas. I do think that they'll probably condense the Pro Bowl. It seemed like it was a lot of different days of commitment.
Yeah.
So that would be my one guess, is that the players probably thought that it might be a little bit much, but we'll see.
Well, Mike, and I always like the idea of having it in Hawaii, bringing their families out, having like a vacation while they do the Pro Bowl stuff. That was kind of the whole point, right? Like put it after the Super Bowl so the Super Bowl players can participate, especially if there's no contact. Like, why not?
But admittedly, I do like the fact that they're having it in other cities. Like, I do like the fact that they're having it in other cities, because it gets the people who may not have a Super Bowl, the opportunity to experience something like this. I think my thing that I'm most interested in isn't really the Pro Bowl, but it's this whole XFL and USFL stuff that's going to be going on. Because like if there's a possibility of how maybe the NFL can kind of tweak some of the things that they're doing, I think that's where it's going to end up being, fascinating down the line. Because kudos to John Elway. He certainly was under a lot of criticism and a lot of crap, when he was an executive. But one of the things that he did help push forward was this idea of the 4th and 15 play. And we saw the Battlehawks game, this last weekend. That was an insane finish. I mean, they were down 15-3. They scored the touchdown. Even the point after stuff is very fascinating to me. Like, if you eliminate the PAT altogether, you have this possibility of a 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point, play. And then, so they got the 3 point play to basically make it to within field goal range. Well, then they converted the 4th and 15 play, and then they go on and score. So I think it's just a creative way that I think you can really make the product of your of your team going forward, or the league, I should say, the NFL, that much better. So I think there's definitely some fascination for me already with the way the XFL is doing this.
So Sports Nonsense and Whiskey says the XFL already has an agreement to try different rules out for the NFL.
So
I love it.
Maybe they should try referees, because ours suck.
Exactly.
Well, that was interesting. Even the challenges and how they had the camera in with Blandino as he was reviewing. I think that's feasible when there's one game happening at once. It would be interesting to see how that control center would be if there are 10 games going on at the same time.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Well, and you'd have to have a mouthpiece. Like, if you want to like control it as a referee goes, and maybe that's what they were trying to go at with like a Dean Blandino originally, right? Because like he was one of the head refs for like some of these games, or a lot of these games. But I think that when you kind of see the way that they were doing the interactive part of it, it was just cool. And granted, your point, Glenn, it was one game. It's one game. It's not like, or it's very little in the grand scheme of things. Like, we're talking like 8 teams, like versus 32. So I mean, the workload is significantly less.
Well, and somebody had brought up an interesting point of maybe the XFL should play the USFL. Combine it. That'd be cool.
Or like the winner of the XFL plays the winner of the USFL.
There you go. And then they play the worst NFL team.
Or then they play Alabama.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's going to about do it for us. So really, I mean, again, not a lot of Broncos news, just some rumors and some trade gossip. Once we get some more news coming out, we'll make sure that we get that to you. But we do want to thank Ryan for joining us. Ryan, where can people follow you on social media?
At New Broncos Era. I just didn't put it in here. So
there we go. At New Broncos Era on Twitter, right?
Right.
All right. So make sure you go follow him. He's dipping his toes into the podcasting world, into the media world. So make sure you go check him out on Twitter. And make sure you go check out the MHRT Network. Has all the shows you can want. We got the Cluster Puck on Monday. We've got the 5280 on Tuesday, followed by Sports Nonsense and Whiskey. You got the Wild Wild West on Wednesday. You've got Bronco Bill on Friday with Broncos Breakdown. And then we got the Neighborhood covering Avalanche games and eventually Broncos games when they come back on. So make sure you check that out as well. Like, subscribe, follow, share. and tell everybody all about us because we love it. It's so much fun. Go Broncos, go Avs, go Nuggets. We're not going to say anything about the Rockies yet because they're still horrible. But we will see you guys later. Bye. Have a good night.